Welcome to the local campaign on Rogers TV. This is the debate for Markham Thornhill. I'm your moderator, Chris Emanuel. Today we'll be asking our candidates questions, both from myself as moderator, but we'll also have taped questions as well. Candidates will be given an opening statement. They'll have a minute to respond to each question, and then they will have questions, or they will have open debate amongst themselves. My job as the moderator will be to ensure that candidates have an opportunity to speak, not talk over each other, and I'll do my best to interject as little as possible. We should note that all candidates were invited to participate. Today we have three participants. From the left, we have Jobson Easow from the Conservative Party of Canada. We have Joshua Russell from the Green Party of Canada, and we have John McCallum from the Liberal Party of Canada. We did a draw for seating arrangements and speaking order, and we will start with opening statements. Jobson, you have 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Jobson Easow. I'm pleased and humbled to be the federal candidate with the Conservative Party of Canada in the great riding of Markham Thornhill. I came to this country as an immigrant 22 years ago in 1993. I lived in Markham for over 17 years with my family. I raised my family in Markham. I know what it takes to raise a family. I'm also a small business owner in the city of Markham. And as we all know, Conservative Party has always and is encouraging the small business owners in terms of flourishing themselves. And not to forget that they are the pillars of strong economy in this country. I believe in the Conservative Party principles and values, and especially the traditional values, which are family values, education, job, and security for safer communities. I will represent the members, the residents of Markham Thornhill in the Parliament Hill, bringing their voice right to Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Jobson. Joshua, you have 1 minute.
My name is Joshua Russell, and I'm the Green Party candidate for the riding of Markham Thornhill. This election is a crucial election, but it is an exciting time as well. The constituents of Markham Thornhill and Canadians everywhere have the opportunity to choose and vote on their values of how they want to see Canada grow in the future. The way I see it, we have the opportunity to choose to continue to work under the same systems and limitations that we have of the past, or we can choose to move forward with sound but bold policy for a sustainable Canada that we can be proud to call our home. I'm looking forward to debating the issues today with my fellow candidates, and thank you, Rogers Television, for hosting us.
Thank you, Joshua. John, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, and hello, everybody. My name is John McCallum, and I'm pleased and honored to be a member of Justin Trudeau's Liberal team. I'd like to give you three reasons why I hope you might consider voting Liberal. First of all, we understand that middle-class families are really stretched these days, and for that reason, we offer a middle-class tax cut, which is paid for by a higher tax on those earning over $200,000. And in addition, we put real money into the pockets of middle-class families with children, far more than do the Conservatives for 90% of the families. A second issue is, I am sure all of you are aware of traffic gridlock and the difficulty of getting from point A to point B. Well, we in the Liberal Party alone are investing billions of dollars in infrastructure in general and public transit in particular. So I've only had time for 2 points. I hope to get to the third one, which is immigration, later in the program. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. Gentlemen, we open up the floor for open discussion. Oh, sorry. That's my first mix-up of the day. Apologies. We're going to go to a taped question. Joshua, this one is to you.
Hi, my name is Paul Peary, and I'm a councillor for the town of Aurora and a board representative on the Federation of the Canadian Municipalities. My question to all the candidates is, what is the biggest problem, in your opinion, facing local municipalities, and what would your party do to address the issue?
Joshua, you have 1 minute.
I'd like to thank the councilman for his question today. The Green Party of Canada fully supports funding sustainable urban transportation. We would dedicate 1 percentage point of the GST, roughly $6 billion, to municipalities to encourage sustainable transportation, so investing in public transit. Growing up in the Greater Toronto Area, I know that this is an issue that is especially lacking in our riding of Markham Thornhill, and I'd be happy to work towards this issue further.
Thank you, Joshua. John, you have a minute.
Thank you. I've met mayors from Newfoundland to Victoria, and all of them speak as one in favoring major new investments in housing and in infrastructure. And this is the #1 item in the Liberal platform. We will have the biggest infrastructure program in Canadian history, where 1/3 of it will go to public transit, 1/3 to social infrastructure, and 1/3 environmental. And it's the right time to do this. It will create tens of thousands of jobs. Interest rates are at an all-time low. We have a huge infrastructure deficit. So I know this is the right plan at the right time for Canadians. And I know from speaking to them that mayors across the country are thrilled with this plan.
Thank you, John. Jobson, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I've been engaged with the community, especially in Markham Thornhill and in the other municipalities. I can tell you the Conservative Party of Canada has been focused on economy. Conservative Party of Canada has been focused on infrastructure. Conservative Party of Canada is focused on the gridlocks which we all are facing, and it is a fact that we do face the gridlocks which is happening within these cities. The economy is the key. Putting money back into the pockets of the hardworking Canadians is the key. And I would say the government, the Conservative government, has proven it and will be proving it in the future, and we will be seeing more and more fundings coming out towards the municipalities.
Thank you, Jobson. Now, I've jumped the gun. Now is the open forum.
Well, Jobson, I'd question this point that you've been focused on infrastructure and gridlock for 10 years, because I would just ask the average listener out there, is gridlock better today than it was 10 years ago when Stephen Harper came to power? My impression is it's getting worse and worse and worse, and the Conservatives simply have not gotten the job done. Anybody who drives around Markham and the GTA knows that as a fact. And that is why I think the time is now, with our record low interest rates and our massive needs for public transit and infrastructure, for the Liberal plan, which will be the biggest plan in Canadian history, far bigger than what the Conservatives are proposing, to address this infrastructure and gridlock issue, which is so important to the people of Markham Thornhill.
Well, John, with all due respect, I do agree. And you have to agree that, yes, there is a gridlock issue. But at the same time, recently, the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, who's also the leader of the Conservative Party, has made the announcement in Toronto, billions of dollars. And, we believe in actioning now.
Well, you've
and
had 10
continue
years.
the action.
You've had 10 years of inaction.
In 10
so
years,
why should Canadians
in 10
you
years,
suddenly go
all the
now?
municipalities, the provinces, everybody has given their fair share, and the provinces are given 70% more.
Well, ask
compared
the
to
people
other
of Markham Thornhill, is traffic gridlock worse or better today than it was 10 years ago, 10 years of Stephen Harper? And I would venture to suggest it's worse today. So he has not gotten the job done, and the time is now for a new plan led by Justin Trudeau.
It also has a fact that all levels of government has to be responsible for that. It is not just taking the money and mismanaging it. It is the money taken and putting it into the right way.
My point is that the mayors have been clamoring for money from the federal government. They're not getting it. The provincial governments have been doing their best. The federal government has a leadership role here. And so if Things are worse 10 years later when Mr. Harper's been the Prime Minister for 10 years. He can't just blame it on other levels of government. He has to take his own share of responsibility.
It is not blaming on the governments. The Conservative Party and the Prime Minister Stephen Harper has done the fair share, giving out into cities.
Or else we wouldn't have the gridlock we have
and
today.
especially to Markham, the city of Markham. I know that it has been done the fair share.
Do I have to repeat that point? Is traffic gridlock better or worse now than 10 years ago?
That is when I told you it's all levels of government has to join together to make that better.
So you're blaming the other levels of government.
Gentlemen, we're going to cut off this
Stephen Harper was in charge.
We're going to cut off the first open forum. We're going to go to the second question now, and this will go to the next candidate. We're going to talk about riding issues. So you all have been knocking on the doors for some time. You know what I think voters are saying at the doors. John, if you could talk, and then the other candidates, about what the major riding issues are that you're facing and how you will advocate for those concerns in Ottawa.
Well, as I've already said more than once, one of them is traffic gridlock, and we are addressing that through our biggest infrastructure public transit program in Canadian history. Many voters at the door do talk about that. I think an overriding issue is a struggling middle class where people are having trouble making ends meet, and we are addressing that through our tax cut and through our much larger family allowances. Also, Markham is a very multicultural riding. 80 or 90% of the people who come into my office are frustrated, sometimes in tears, at the huge amounts of time they have to wait in order to be reunited with loved ones. We in our office work as hard as we possibly can on behalf of those constituents, but we, the Liberal Party, are going to double the budget of the Immigration Department to deal with family class because those waiting times have skyrocketed under Conservatives, and we are determined to bring them down.
Thank you, John. Jobson, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I've been engaging for the past few months, engaging with the people in Markham Thornhill. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an immigrant myself. I've been on to the grassroots level. I know what it takes to raise a family in this country. While I was engaging with the people, yes, people the most concern is about growing the economy. What I've seen more is about having more jobs, which is also, matching up to their educational credentials. We have seen the issues, or we have heard from the constituents that on safer economy, safer communities for our children and protecting the hardworking Canadians here. Now, John has mentioned about the immigration. I don't know how they can explain just like that bluntly. In 2006, when the Conservative government took this over, there was 800,000 backlog applications in the system. The Conservative government has brought in the maximum immigrants into this country, in the history of this country. And I believe we will continue to do the same.
We've got to move on. Joshua, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Coming back to transportation, growing up in the riding of Markham Thornhill myself, going to school here throughout elementary school and high school before furthering my education, transportation is a huge issue that I've found for me on a personal level, for me and my family, to friends, and throughout talking with the community. Having to wait for an hour, 2 hours for a bus, and then taking, for a trip that would take about 15 minutes in the car, is just something that is not right. We can't have transportation, we can't hope to have a viable alternative to our car if those are the kinds of times that we're waiting for. So right now there is a huge imbalance between the federal tax revenue and provincial and municipal tax revenue. Currently about 50% of federal tax revenue goes to the federal government, 42%.
Thank you, Joshua. We're going to open this floor up now for discussion.
Well, Jobson, I have to respond to you on immigration.
All right.
Because you mentioned 2006. That's when Stephen Harper came into power. And the processing times, the waiting times for families, for parents, for children, for spouses are at least twice as high today as they were when Stephen Harper came to office. So it's been a steady deterioration under the Conservatives and a steady rise in the frustration of our constituents. And Canada has a long history of welcoming tens of thousands of refugees, including by progressive Conservative governments like Joe Clark, 60,000 Vietnamese boat people, and Hungarians, and many, many others. It is only under Stephen Harper that Canada's heart has disappeared, and our response to the Syrian refugee crisis, which is the worst in decades, is absolutely pathetic. Your immigration minister, Chris Alexander, hides from media because he's embarrassed to admit how few have been admitted. So I believe under immigration, we have to welcome newcomers with a smile, and that includes family members, but it also includes refugees who are in desperate trouble in Syria and other parts of the world.
Our government, the Conservative government, has done everything in its power to bring in the refugees from Syria.
Total
in here,
nonsense.
First of all, that they have announced 10,000 refugees to bringing them in. At the same time, we also screen them. There's a process which they need to take it in. Now, you mentioned that the immigration process is still longer than before 2006. I disagree completely with that. I'm just saying, I'm an immigrant, John. I'm an immigrant in this country. I have dealt with immigrants. I know people who have immigrated in this country. I know parents have joined. I know parents have joined with their family and living happily in this riding.
I'm not saying they're not living happily in this riding. This is a wonderful riding in a wonderful country. What I'm saying is that the government's own statistics say that the processing times have doubled or worse since 2006. It's not me making it up. It's the government's own data. It's a fact.
I'm not sure which statistics you're looking at, because the latest statistics just proves to me that the processing times have increased. The online, applications have been decreased those processing times, and it has been speed up the process.
That you just look at the government website under Immigration Canada, the Conservative government's own website, and it will show you processing times have skyrocketed since 2006-07 onwards to today. And that is exactly why we Liberals are going to invest more money into immigration to get those processing times
since
down.
2006, 260,000 each year immigrants are coming into this country.
StatsCan data
and 262,000 came in last year.
StatsCan data released yesterday show the number of immigrants let into Canada in the year ending June of this year is down 10% under the Conservative watch.
June of this year.
I've got
in
to
the year to
wrap
June
up
of
this
this year.
portion. We're going to go to another question from the tape. Jobson, this one will be going to you first.
Hi, my name is Michael and I work in the financial industry. My question for the candidates is, how does your party plan to fund government initiatives, and what would the impact be at both an individual and a corporate level?
You have 1 minute, Jobson. It's a costing question.
As Conservative government is being known and is being performed, and it shows the result that this is the party which has the best economic growth within this country. We have the lowest tax rate in 50 years. We have the lowest tax rate. Our plans are, we have promoted the small business owners. The small business owners are the pillars of economy in this country. Everything is towards lower economy and lower tax and putting back the money into the pockets of the hardworking Canadians. And that's how we all enjoy our life. That's all we have. Happy families. That's how we create the safer communities. That's how we create more jobs into this economy. That's how we create more people coming into this country and enjoying the good society of this country.
Thank you. Joshua, you have 1 minute.
I'd like to thank you for your question. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity to actually talk about corporate tax. Currently, the Green Party would raise it back to 2009 levels. Currently, the corporate tax rate in Canada is about 15% lowest in all of the OECD countries, and actually more than half of what our American counterparts pay. What we've seen is that this was sold by the Conservative government as a means to jumpstart the economy. What we've seen actually, and Mark Carney and the late Minister Flaherty have both called upon corporations to pay a little bit more tax, because that we've seen that the money that has been accumulated is not being reinvested into Canada. What's it doing? It's staying in the bank accounts. It's not generating any growth. So the Green Party would raise corporate tax level back to 19%.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. John, you have 1 minute.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I keep going after Jobson, but I'm actually a fan of Elizabeth May, so I don't have much bad to say about her. But I was struck by Jobson's comment about how the growth was high under Stephen Harper. You may or may not know this, but Canada is the only G7 country in recession. That means we are the worst of the G7 in the sense that we are the only one that has half a year of negative growth of our economy. On top of that, growth under Stephen Harper is lower than at any time since R.B. Bennett in the 1930s. So you talk about Stephen Harper's able hands to steer us through these troubled times. But the reality is that we are the only G7 country in recession. He has had the lowest growth of any prime minister since the 1930s, so he is not getting the job done. And that is why I am telling you we need the Liberal plan, which is the only party to have a plan, to kickstart the economy, get the jobs,
Thank you.
Deal with the gridlock.
Thank you. I'm going to open this up, but just a reminder, I think the three of you strayed a bit. It was a very specific question about costing of platforms, how you will pay for your campaign promises. So I open the floor up.
Well, John, just to answer your question, I know you just mentioned that Stephen Harper has the able hands to run this country.
I said you claim that. I do not agree.
Well, you're right. You're right, because he's running the best country in the G7 countries.
I said he did
if
not
you look
have
at
able
G7
hands.
countries, we have the best rating in G7 countries. You look at the two last statistics and which came out. We have the economy is growing. It's expanding,
It's not growing.
which you saw that.
We're the only
It's
country
in
in
June and
recession.
July you saw that. So I'm not sure why and how you're putting out those numbers. We are not planned to run deficits. Running deficit is not going to increase just the economy.
Well, let me try to answer. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just trying to answer the questioner's question.
Yeah.
We in the Liberal Party are the party that inherited a huge conservative deficit, and under Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien got rid of that deficit, paid down debt, and turned Canada from the basket case of the G7 to the star of the G7, fiscally speaking. So we know how to balance budgets. But we believe, given record low interest rates, our struggling economy, our need for jobs, now is the time for a big push on investment. And so we are honest enough to admit to Canadians that we will run moderate deficits for 3 years in order to achieve this kickstart to the economy. The Canadian government is already in deficit as we speak, so whoever wins the election will inherit a deficit, but we are committed to run moderate deficits for 3 years in order to create the jobs and the traffic gridlock resolutions that Canadians so clearly need.
Well, Conservative Party believes in balanced budgets. Conservative believes in surplus in budget. Conservative Party has proven it. It has a record. And, going forward, we are still, like I said, we do see economic growth. We passed in June and July, you have seen those
You
economic,
just said conservative
the
government
GDP growing.
believes in surpluses. Then how come in just about every year of the Harper government you ran big deficits?
Didn't you see
Bigger
the surpluses coming
than
over?
what we are proposing. You're
you
the
haven't
party
seen
of
the
deficits.
surpluses coming over.
You are the
you
party
saw the
of
surplus
deficits.
coming over.
Gentlemen,
You have to admit that.
Tens of billions added to the debt under Stephen Harper.
What I'm going to do here is, as the last question, and we're just going to go right into open session, but it's somewhat related. How will your parties stimulate economic growth? What are your specific plans? And it's an open forum.
I think I've already answered that. We are the only party with a real plan to kickstart the economy, have a massive infrastructure program, put money in the pockets of middle-class families who will spend that money. And yes, we will run moderate deficits for 3 years, nothing compared with the big deficits Stephen Harper has run. But we believe with low interest rates, now is the time to do that. the Canadian economy, the Canadian people need a real plan to kickstart the economy and grow jobs, and that is the Liberal plan.
I can. If it's my turn, I can just tell you, we don't believe, to run or even putting a deficit budget through the Parliament. I'm not sure how fair it is to put a deficit, how to present a deficit budget. A budget has to balance. It is all about growing economy. It is lower taxes. Again, I can repeat that again. This country, in the past 50 years, we have the lowest tax rate. On top of that, we will be locking. We have blocked in raising any taxes for the next 4 years, an elected Conservative government. This is besides of all the other announcements which we have increased for families, such as universal child care benefits, doubling up the government part towards the RESP, giving all those tax credits, especially for new home buyers, to the renovation tax credit. On top of all of this, the party believes that we run a good economy, stronger economy for good families and to have happy families for hardworking Canadians.
I'm going to interject here. Joshua, if you want to have a chance to speak to how the Green Party will stimulate the economic growth.
The Green Party would stimulate economic growth by investing back into our cities. What we're seeing now is an opportunity to change. The environmental problems that we're facing today, the Green Party views that as an opportunity to grow the economy. How we would do that is shift to a low-carbon economy. So how we would do that would be, first of all, a revenue-neutral price on carbon, first of all. What a revenue-neutral tax means is it does not affect our incomes. That would be a price on the producers of CO2, and then that would be distributed back to Canadians. That provides a market incentive that producing carbon, that our manufacturers and our producers of CO2 or of greenhouse gas emissions, it signals to the market that this is no longer something that you can do for free. We're putting a price on this, and it's not just an environmental price that we're talking about, we're also talking about a health cost and a societal cost when we're putting a price on carbon.
We've got about a minute left. Any quick parting thoughts from the other candidates?
I just have one parting comment. This idea that the Conservative Party is the party that never runs deficits conflicts with reality. First, when we came to power in '93, it was a huge Conservative deficit we had to tame. And now, since Stephen Harper has been Prime Minister, he's added tens of $billions to the
I'm going to give
debt.
Jobson...
He has had a deficit in 1 year of $50 billion.
I'm going to interrupt. Jobson, you've got about 20 seconds to respond to that.
Well, I just wanted to mention to you, John, it is Stephen Harper, and it's the government of Stephen Harper which has put a bill through saying that you cannot have a deficit budget bringing in.
Well, he didn't obey that himself.
Well, that's the government which is doing
himself.
It. And you guys want to take it away.
Candidates, thank you so much. It's been a fulsome debate. To the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Visit rogerstv.com for more info, and be sure to vote on Election Day on October 19th. Thank you.